The Arizona sun was a merciless judge, and Amanda Brooks knew her verdict was coming. Her once pristine traveling dress, ordered from Boston's finest seamstress just 3 months ago, now hung on her frame like a dusty shroud. The wagon wheel had snapped clean through yesterday morning, and her driver, that coward Jenkins, had taken the horses and left her with nothing but $47 in gold coins and a canteen that ran dry 6 hours ago. She stumbled forward, her leather boots, impractical things meant for cobblestone streets. Not this endless red earth, catching on every rock and root. The desert stretched before her like God's own furnace, heat waves dancing off the hardpan, making the distant mesas shimmer like mirages. Or perhaps they were mirages. Amanda couldn't tell anymore. "Keep walking," she whispered through cracked lips. "Just keep walking." But walking to where? She'd fled Boston in such haste that she'd barely planned beyond reaching California. The scandal would have destroyed her, would have seen her in prison, more likely than not. Those land deeds, those contracts with the tribal signatures. She'd only been doing what Mr. Hartwell had asked. She was just a clerk in his law office, for heaven's sake. How was she to know the signatures were forged, that the whole scheme was built on theft and lies? The sun climbed higher, and Amanda's shadow shrank beneath her. She thought of her mother's parlor, with its velvet curtains drawn against the afternoon light, the gentle clink of teacups on saucers. She thought of snow. Lord, what she wouldn't give for snow. Her knees buckled. The ground was surprisingly warm through her skirts, almost comforting. Perhaps she'd rest here just a moment, just until the sun wasn't quite so fierce. "Ma'am?" The voice came from above her, young and curious. Amanda forced her eyes open, squinting against the glare. A boy sat astride a paint horse, looking down at her with dark eyes that held none of the suspicion she'd grown accustomed to in the towns she'd passed through. He couldn't have been more than 12, with sun-bronzed skin and black hair tied back with a strip of leather. "Ma'am, you don't look so good," the boy said, sliding down from his horse with the easy grace of someone born to the saddle. He uncorked a water skin and held it to her lips. "Here, drink slow." The water was warm and tasted of leather, but it was the finest thing Amanda had ever tasted. She wanted to gulp it down, but the boy's steady hand kept her pace measured. "Thank you," she managed when he pulled the skin away. "You're a long way from anywhere, ma'am. Where's your horse, your people?" "Gone." The word came out bitter. "The wagon broke. The driver took the horses." The boy's expression darkened. "Left you out here alone. That ain't right." He studied her for a long moment, seeming to weigh something in his mind. Then he smiled, sudden and bright as sunlight breaking through clouds. "Want to meet my papa? He's got a trading post on about 5 miles north, and we got shade, water, food. He don't turn nobody away who needs help." Amanda knew she should be cautious. She'd learned hard lessons about trusting strangers these past weeks. But what choice did she have? Die here in the dust, or take a chance on a boy's kindness? Yes, thank you." The boy helped her stand, surprisingly strong for his age. "Can you ride? You can share with me. Patch is here. He's carried 2 before." She'd never ridden astride in her life, but propriety seemed a small concern when balanced against survival. The boy boosted her up, then swung up behind her, reaching around to take the reins. "I'm Lucas," he said as the horse began walking. "Lucas Silversmith, Papa's Daniel Silversmith. Mama was Mary Crow Feather, but she passed when I was small." "Amanda Brooks," she replied, then wondered if she should have given a false name. Too late now. "That's a pretty name. Eastern sounds like you from back east?" "Boston?" Lucas whistled low. "That's about as east as it gets. What brings you all the way out here? Amanda closed her eyes. It's a long story. Well, we got 5 miles, Lucas said cheerfully. But if you don't want to tell it, that's all right too. Papa says everybody's got a right to their own sorrows. They rode in silence for a while, the horse's steady gait rocking Amanda like a cradle. Despite everything, she found herself relaxing slightly. The boy radiated a quiet confidence, handling his mount with unconscious skill as they navigated the treacherous terrain. There, Lucas said eventually, pointing ahead. See that smoke? That's home. Amanda looked and saw buildings materializing from the heat haze. Not a town, exactly, but more than she'd expected. A main building that must be the trading post, a barn, several smaller structures, and what looked like traditional native dwellings set a bit apart. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys, and she could see figures moving about. Papa built it all himself, mostly, Lucas said with pride. Well, him and the others. We got about 20 folks here regular, more during trading season. Navajo, Apache, Mexican, American. Papa says the desert don't care where you're from, so neither should we. As they drew closer, a man emerged from the trading post, shading his eyes with one hand. He was tall and lean, with the kind of build that came from hard work rather than leisure. His hair was dark with silver at the temples, and when he smiled at his son, deep lines crinkled around his eyes. Lucas was starting to wonder. He stopped short, seeing Amanda. His expression shifted from welcome to concern. Son, found her out by Devil's Wash. Papa, that snake Jenkins left her when their wagon broke. Daniel Silversmith's face darkened much as his son's had. Jenkins should have known. He reached up to help Amanda down, his hands gentle but impersonal. Ma'am, you're welcome here. Let's get you out of this sun. The interior of the trading post was blessedly cool and dim. Amanda sank into a chair while Daniel fetched water and a damp cloth. A woman appeared from a back room, native, with intelligent eyes and silver threading through her long braids. Sarah, Daniel said when we got a guest. Ladies had a rough time of it. Sarah Crow Feather took one look at Amanda and began issuing quiet orders. Before Amanda quite knew what was happening, she found herself in a small but clean room, wearing a borrowed dress of soft cotton, her feet soaking in a basin of cool water. Sarah worked silently, efficiently, asking no questions. It wasn't until later, after she'd eaten a simple meal of beans and cornbread, that Amanda found herself sitting with Daniel on the trading post's broad porch, watching the sun paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Lucas says you're from Boston, Daniel said, not quite a question. Yes, a long way from home. Amanda laughed, short and bitter. I don't have a home anymore. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Desert's got a way of taking people in who don't fit anywhere else. Ask me how I know. She looked at him sideways. His accent was educated Eastern, not unlike her own. You're not from here either, she said. Philadelphia originally. Came out here 15 years ago running from my own troubles. He smiled slightly. Found something I wasn't looking for. A life. A purpose. A son. Lucas seems like a fine boy. He is best thing that ever happened to me. Him and his mama both. Daniel stood. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. Miss Brooks, we got work if you're willing, and we don't ask questions that don't need asking. Whatever brought you here, that's between you and your conscience. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. After weeks of suspicion, of doors slammed in her face, of being seen as nothing but a loose woman traveling alone, this simple acceptance was almost too much to bear. Thank you, she whispered. Daniel nodded and went inside, leaving her to watch the desert settle into evening. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, and another answered. The sound should have been lonely, but somehow it wasn't. Lucas appeared at her elbow, silent as a shadow. "Papa likes you," he said matter-of-factly. "He don't offer permanent work to just anybody." "How can you tell he likes me?" "'Cause he didn't ask what you're running from. Means he thinks you're worth trusting to tell it in your own time." The boy grinned. "Plus, he gave you Mama's old room. He don't do that for folks he thinks might rob us in the night." Amanda found herself smiling despite everything. "And what do you think? Am I trustworthy?" Lucas considered this seriously. "I think you're sad and scared and probably did something you ain't proud of. But I also think you're trying to be better. Papa says that's all anybody can do. Try to be better than they were yesterday." The wisdom from one so young made her throat tight. "Your papa sounds like a wise man." "Hey, he is smartest man I know, and I know plenty." Lucas stood. "You should stay, Miss Amanda. This place has a way of healing folks who let it." As the boy wandered off to tend to his horse, Amanda sat in the gathering dark and wondered if healing was even possible for someone like her. She'd been party to stealing from the very people who'd taken her in today. How could she ever make that right? But as the stars began to emerge in the vast desert sky, she thought maybe Lucas was right. Maybe all anyone could do was try to be better than they were yesterday. And maybe, just maybe, this strange collection of souls in the middle of nowhere might give her the chance to try. The desert wind whispered across the sand, and for the first time in weeks, Amanda Brooks stopped running, at least for tonight. Amanda woke to the sound of hammering. For a moment, she lay still, disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling beams above her. Then memory flooded back, the desert, the boy, the trading post. She'd slept deeper than she had in weeks, without the constant fear of discovery dogging her dreams. She dressed in the borrowed cotton dress and ventured out to find the source of the noise. Behind the main building, Daniel Silversmith worked at a wooden frame, Lucas beside him holding nails. "Ye morning, Miss Amanda," Lucas called cheerfully. "Papa's fixing the chicken coop. Coyote got in last week." Daniel straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. "Miss Brooks, and trust you slept well?" "Better than I have in some time. Mr. Silversmith, thank you." "Just Daniel is fine." He gestured at the half-built structure. "You know anything about carpentry?" "I'm afraid not, but I'm willing to learn, if you'll teach me." A slight smile crossed his face. "Honest answer. Though I suspect you've got other skills that might be more useful." "Lucas mentioned you're from Boston. What kind of work did you do there?" Amanda hesitated. The truth was dangerous, but lying to these people who'd shown her such kindness felt worse. "I worked in a law office, bookkeeping, correspondence, document preparation." Daniel and Lucas exchanged a look she couldn't quite read. "That's so," Daniel said mildly. "Well, happens I could use some help with the books. Sarah does her best, but numbers aren't her strong suit. Would you be willing to take a look?" Of course. The trading post's office was a small room behind the main counter, papers stacked in precarious piles, ledgers scattered across a scarred wooden desk. Amanda felt something ease in her chest at the familiar sight of columns of figures, even if they were in disarray. "I'll leave you to it," Daniel said. "Anything you need, just ask." Amanda rolled up her sleeves and set to work. Within an hour, she'd identified the problem. Daniel was running at least 3 separate businesses from the trading post, but keeping them all in one ledger. There was the actual trading, freight hauling, and what appeared to be a complex network of loans to local ranchers and miners. She was deep in calculations when Sarah Crow Feather appeared with coffee and bread. "You're the first person to make sense of Daniel's system," Sarah said, setting the tray down carefully. "Even he gets lost sometimes. It's not that complicated once you see the pattern." Amanda accepted the coffee gratefully. "Though I'd suggest separate books for each enterprise. It would make tax time simpler." Sarah's expression sharpened. "You know tax law?" "Some. Part of my work involved property documentation." The two women regarded each other for a long moment. Sarah was no fool. Amanda could see the intelligence in her dark eyes, the careful assessment. "Property documentation," Sarah repeated, "that covers considerable ground." Amanda set down her pencil. "Mrs. Crow Feather." "Just Sarah." "Sarah, I want you to know, I would never do anything to harm you or your people, and whatever I may have done before, I'm not that person anymore." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "The desert has a way of changing people, some for the better, some for the worse. Daniel seems to think you're the former. His judgment is usually sound." She left Amanda to her work, but the conversation lingered in Amanda's mind. These people had taken her in without question, but they weren't naive. They knew she was running from something. By noon, she'd reorganized the entire filing system and started on the current month's books. She was so absorbed that she didn't hear Daniel enter until he spoke. "Good Lord, is that my ledger?" Amanda looked up, suddenly worried. "I hope you don't mind. I thought if I separated the accounts—" "Mind?" Daniel moved closer, examining her work. "Miss Brooks, you've done more in 4 hours than I've managed in 4 months. Where did you learn accounting like this?" "Radcliffe Female Seminary, then 3 years at Hartwell and Associates." The name slipped out before she could stop it. Daniel's expression didn't change, but she saw the recognition in his eyes. Everyone in business knew Hartwell and Associates, one of Boston's most powerful law firms, with interests stretching across the continent. "I see," was all he said. Then, "Would you be interested in permanent employment, room, board, and wages, $20 a month to start?" It was a generous offer for a bookkeeper in the territories. More than generous, considering he was also offering protection from whatever she was running from. Why?" Amanda asked. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then pulled out a chair and sat across from her. 15 years ago, I was a junior partner in a Philadelphia firm, respectable, successful, engaged to a senator's daughter. Then I discovered my senior partners were defrauding war widows out of their pensions. When I tried to stop it, they framed me for embezzlement. Amanda's breath caught. "I ran," Daniel continued. "Made it as far as Santa Fe before my money ran out. Would have died in an alley if Mary Crow Feather hadn't found me." She was working at a boarding house, sending money back to her family on the reservation. She could have turned me in for the bounty on. Instead, she hid me, nursed me back to health, eventually married me despite everything. He gestured around the small office. "This place, these people, we're all running from something or towards something." Sarah there? She was educated at an Eastern school, meant to be a teacher on the reservation. But she refused to teach children to forget their own language, so they cast her out. That's how she ended up here. "And Lucas?" Daniel's face softened. "Lucas is the best of both his parents. Smart as his mama, stubborn as me. He'll need education soon, proper education. The kind of education a woman from Radcliffe might be able to provide." Amanda felt tears threaten again. "Mr. Silversmith, Daniel, you should know that I was involved in something terrible. Land fraud against tribal territories. I didn't know at first, but when I found out, you ran rather than be part of it. After I'd already been part of it, The damage was done. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Tell me something, Miss Brooks. If you could undo it, would you? With all my heart. Then perhaps that's where we start. Can't change the past, but maybe we can work toward a better future. He stood. The offer stands. Think about it. That evening, Amanda found herself sitting with Lucas on the porch again, helping him with his reading. The boy was quick but undisciplined, his education clearly pieced together from whatever books came through the trading post. This word here, Lucas pointed, what's it mean? In manifest, it means clear or obvious. Like manifest destiny? The boy's voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. Teacher in town said that means it's obvious God wants white folks to have all the land. Amanda chose her words carefully. That's one interpretation, but manifest can also mean to reveal or make known. Perhaps the real destiny is for all people to learn to share the land. Lucas looked at her with those two wise eyes. You really believe that? I'm trying to... Sarah emerged from the trading post, settling into a chair with some mending. Lucas giving you his philosophy test. Miss Brooks? She passes, Lucas declared. Can she stay, Aunt Sarah? Papa already asked her. Sarah's needle never paused. That's for Miss Brooks to decide, though I admit it would be nice to have another woman around who can read and cipher. Might even convince some of the local families to send their daughters for lessons. The idea sparked something in Amanda. A school? Nothing formal, but there are children here who need learning, and not just English learning. Both ways, as my people say, learning the new without forgetting the old. Amanda looked out at the desert, painted purple and gold in the dying light. 3 days ago, she'd been dying in this wilderness. Now she was being offered not just survival, but purpose. I need to tell you both something, she said quietly, about what I'm running from. She told them everything, the forged signatures, the stolen land, the moment she'd discovered the truth, how she'd confronted Hartwell, threatened to go to the authorities, how he'd laughed and told her she'd hang alongside them if she tried. Neither Sarah nor Lucas interrupted. When she finished, the silence stretched long. Finally, Sarah spoke. This Hartwell, he's still doing this, as far as I know. And you have knowledge of his methods, his papers, his associates? Amanda nodded. I helped prepare hundreds of documents. I know every detail of how the scheme works. Sarah and Lucas exchanged a look. Then perhaps, Sarah said slowly, the Creator brought you here for a reason beyond sanctuary. Before Amanda could ask what she meant, Daniel appeared in the doorway. Riders coming, maybe 6 or 7. Everyone tensed. Lucas moved to the window, peering out. It's old Sam and the Yazzie brothers. Looks like they're bringing the whole family. Daniel relaxed slightly, but Amanda noticed he still kept his hand near the rifle by the door. Wonder what brings them here so late. They didn't have to wonder long. The riders dismounted in a cloud of dust, and Amanda recognized the controlled urgency of people bearing bad news. The lead rider, a weather-beaten man in his 60s, spoke rapidly to Daniel in a mixture of English and what Amanda assumed was Navajo. Daniel's face grew increasingly grim. Finally, he turned to the others. Railroad surveyors were spotted near Black Mesa. They're marking traditional grazing lands for a new route. But that's treaty land, Lucas protested. Old Sam spat in the dust. When has paper ever stopped them? Sarah stood, her mending forgotten. How many surveyors? Full crew, maybe 20 men with military escort. A military escort for a survey team. Daniel's voice was sharp. That's not standard. It is if they're expecting resistance, Sarah said quietly. She turned to Amanda. Miss Brooks, you know land law. Is there any legal way they can survey treaty-protected territory? Amanda's mind raced through possibilities. Only if they claim eminent domain for federal use, or if there's a clause in the treaty allowing for renegotiation under specific circumstances. Do you have a copy of the treaty? In the strong box, Daniel said. He looked at Amanda for a long moment, seeming to make a decision. Would you be willing to examine it? Your expertise might help. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on Amanda. 3 days ago, she'd been party to stealing land from these very people. Now they were asking for her help to protect it. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll help. The group moved inside, where Daniel produced a leather-wrapped bundle from a heavy iron strongbox. The treaty was written in both English and Spanish, with marks and signatures from various tribal leaders. Amanda spread it on the table, using lanterns to illuminate the dense legal text. She read in silence while the others waited. Years of training under Hartwell had taught her to find the loopholes, the weak spots that could be exploited. Now she used those same skills in reverse, looking for strengths, for language that might protect rather than plunder. Here, she said finally, pointing to a section. The treaty guarantees the land for perpetual use and occupancy by the signatory tribes, but there's a provision for necessary military roads that's dangerously vague. So they could claim they need a road for military purposes, Daniel asked. Possibly, but, Amanda read further. The provision requires consultation with and compensation to the affected tribes. Have they made any official contact? Old Sam snorted. First we heard was seeing their transit theodolites on the ridge. Then they're in violation. Amanda felt the familiar thrill of finding the key point in a document. Without proper consultation, any survey is illegal. You could petition the territorial court for an injunction. The courts don't favor Indians, one of the Yazzie brothers said bitterly. No, Amanda agreed. But they do favor proper procedure, and if the railroad is trying to avoid the consultation requirement, it suggests they know their claim is weak. She looked around the table. Do you have an attorney? Nearest lawyer is in Flagstaff, and he wouldn't take our case anyway, Daniel said. Amanda took a deep breath. I'm not a licensed attorney, but I know how to write legal documents. I could draft the petition. The room fell silent. Sarah was the first to speak. You would do this? I've spent 3 years helping steal land legally. Maybe it's time I helped protect it the same way. Old Sam studied her with rheumy eyes. This could bring trouble to your door, miss. Railroad companies don't like being told no. Amanda thought of Hartwell, of all the documents she'd prepared that had dispossessed families like these. I'm already in trouble. At least this would be trouble for the right reasons. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we'd be grateful for your help, Miss Brooks. They worked through the night. Amanda drafted the petition while Sarah translated key portions into Navajo and Spanish. Lucas made coffee and kept the lanterns filled. The Yazzie family and Old Sam provided details about the land in question. Water sources, grazing patterns, sacred sites that the railroad would desecrate. As dawn broke over the desert, Amanda set down her pen and flexed her cramped fingers. The petition was 12 pages of closely reasoned legal argument, citing precedents and treaty provisions, demanding not just an injunction but a full investigation into the railroad's surveying practices. It's not perfect, she said, exhausted. A real lawyer could probably improve it, but it should be enough to get a judge's attention. Daniel read through it slowly. Miss Brooks, this is remarkable. Where did you learn to write like this? From a man who used these same skills to destroy lives. She managed a tired smile. Turns out the tools themselves aren't evil. It's how you use them. Sarah touched her shoulder gently. You should rest. You've done more than enough. But Amanda shook her head. I need to make a fair copy. The court will wait. Daniel said firmly. Lucas, show Miss Brooks back to her room. Sarah, could you make sure she has something to eat? As Lucas led her away, Amanda heard old Sam speaking quietly to Daniel in Navajo. She didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear, approval, and perhaps a touch of wonder. What did he say? She asked Lucas. The boy grinned. He said maybe the Creator has a sense of humor, sending us a white woman who knows the enemy's magic. He also said you have a warrior's heart, even if you don't know it yet. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes again. I'm no warrior, Lucas. I'm just trying to make things right. Aunt Sarah says that's how all warriors begin, Lucas said seriously. Not wanting to fight, but knowing something needs protecting. Back in her small room, Mary Crow Feather's room, she reminded herself, Amanda collapsed onto the bed. Through the window, she could see the sun rising over the desert, painting the rocks in shades of rose and gold. Somewhere out there, railroad surveyors were measuring land that wasn't theirs to take. But here, in this unlikely collection of outcasts and survivors, she'd found people willing to fight back with words instead of weapons. She thought of Hartwell, probably sitting in his Boston office right now, confident that his former clerk was either dead in the desert or too frightened to ever speak against him. He was wrong on both counts. I can't undo what I helped you do, she whispered to the empty room. But I can try to stop you from doing it again. As sleep finally claimed her, Amanda Brooks made a decision. She would accept Daniel's offer. She would stay at Whispering Winds, teach Lucas and any other children who needed learning, keep the books that tracked honest trade instead of theft. And when the time came, because she knew it would come, she would use everything Hartwell had taught her to fight against men like him. The desert had taken her in when she was lost. Now it was time to repay that debt, one legal document at a time. 3 weeks had passed since Amanda drafted the petition, and Whispering Winds had transformed from a refuge into something that felt dangerously close to home. She rose each dawn to help Sarah with breakfast, spent mornings teaching Lucas and 2 Apache children whose families traded regularly at the post, and devoted afternoons to maintaining Daniel's increasingly complex books. The petition had been filed in Prescott, carried there by the Yazzie brothers with copies sent to the territorial governor and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now they waited, and in that waiting, Amanda discovered the rhythm of life at the trading post. Miss Amanda, look, Lucas called from where he sat with the other children around a makeshift table under the ramada. I wrote my name in 3 languages. She examined his slate, smiling at the careful letters. Excellent work, Lucas, Maria, Joseph. Show me yours. As the children worked on their letters, Amanda noticed a dust cloud approaching from the east. Her stomach tightened. Unexpected visitors rarely brought good news. But Lucas just glanced up and grinned. That's Thomas Red Crow. He's bringing supplies from Flagstaff. Thomas Red Crow proved to be a young man of mixed heritage, with an easy smile and news that set the trading post buzzing. Judge Morrison wants to see the treaty original, he announced, accepting a cup of water from Sarah. And there's talk in town. The railroads hired Pinkerton men. Daniel's expression darkened. Pinkertons. That's escalation. What are Pinkertons? Maria asked, looking up from her slate. Private lawmen, Amanda explained carefully. Companies hire them when, she paused, choosing her words. When they want to make sure things go their way. Thomas produced a letter from his saddlebag. This came for you, Miss Brooks, from Boston. Amanda's blood ran cold. With trembling hands, she took the envelope. Her name was written in Hartwell's precise script. I'll read this later, she managed. But Daniel shook his head. Better to know what we're facing. We're all in this together now. She broke the seal and unfolded the single sheet. My dear Miss Brooks, I was most distressed to hear of your unfortunate accident in the territories. How tragic that you perished when your wagon overturned in a ravine. Your body sadly never recovered. Your mother has been informed and a memorial service was lovely. I trust you understand the permanence of your departure from polite society. The desert is vast and swallows many secrets. See that you remain one of them. Your former employer, Josiah Hartwell. He's declared me dead, Amanda said numbly. Had a memorial service and everything. Sarah took the letter, read it, and passed it to Daniel. This is a threat poorly disguised as sympathy. It's more than that, Daniel said. It's insurance. If you try to testify against him, he'll claim you're an imposter. Your testimony would be worthless. Amanda sank into a chair. In 3 short paragraphs. Hartwell had cut her last ties to her old life. Her mother thought she was dead. Her friends, such as they were, had mourned her. Elizabeth Amanda Brooks of Boston no longer existed. I'm sorry, she whispered. I've brought danger to your door. I should leave. And go where? Lucas demanded, his young face fierce. You're our teacher now. Your family. The boy's right, Thomas Red Crow said. Besides, from what I hear, you've been causing the railroad some difficulties. The survey team's been camped at Black Mesa for 2 weeks, afraid to proceed without legal clearance. Despite everything, Amanda felt a spark of satisfaction. The injunction is holding? For now. But that's why they've brought in Pinkertons. Word is they're looking for whoever drafted that petition. Professional work like that doesn't just appear from nowhere. Daniel and Sarah exchanged glances. Perhaps, Sarah said slowly. It's time we expanded our defensive strategy. That evening, after the children had been sent home and Thomas had bedded down in the barn, the adults gathered in the main room. Sarah spread a map on the table, marking locations with precise fingers. The railroad's ultimate goal isn't just Black Mesa, she explained. It's the whole corridor from Flagstaff to California, treaty lands, Mexican grant lands, homesteads, anything in their path. How do you know this? Amanda asked. Sarah smiled grimly. Because I've been collecting information for 5 years. Letters, contracts, survey reports. The trading post sees many travelers, and travelers talk, especially when they've been drinking Daniel's whiskey. Daniel produced a wooden box from behind the counter. Inside were dozens of documents, some water-stained, others crisp and official-looking. Sarah's been building a case. We just never had anyone who could make legal sense of it all. Amanda began examining the papers, her trained eye catching patterns immediately. These aren't just about one railroad. This is coordinated, multiple companies, but the same names keep appearing on the boards of directors. Including your Mr. Hartwell, Sarah asked. Amanda shuffled through more papers, then stopped. Here, Hartwell and Associates listed as legal counsel for the Western Pacific Development Company. She kept reading. Which is a subsidiary of... Oh my God. What? Daniel leaned closer. Union Pacific. They're using shell companies to circumvent the federal restrictions on how much land a single railroad can claim. She grabbed more documents, her excitement building. And here, mineral rights claims filed just days before the railroad surveys. They're not just stealing land for tracks. They're positioning themselves to control all the resources along the routes. Can we prove it? Thomas asked. With this? Amanda gestured at the papers. And what I know from Boston? Yes, but proving it and getting anyone to listen are 2 different things. Sarah stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the darkened desert. There's something else. My cousin works at the territorial capital. She says there's a federal investigator coming. Something about irregularities in land claims. Hope bloomed in Amanda's chest. A federal investigator might actually listen. If we could compile everything, create a comprehensive report, it would take weeks, Daniel said. And we'd need more than what we have here. Original documents, testimony from affected families. Then we'd better start, Amanda said firmly. Lucas, tomorrow you'll help me organize what we have. Sarah, can you reach out to your contacts? We need every scrap of evidence. What about the Pinkertons? Thomas asked. They're not going to sit idle while we build a case against their employers. Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Let me worry about the Pinkertons. This isn't the first time Whispering Winds has dealt with unwelcome visitors. Over the following days, the trading post transformed into a center of quiet resistance. Families arrived with stories and documents, deeds that had mysteriously disappeared from county records. Surveys that showed different boundaries than what was filed. Contracts signed with X's by people who could write their own names. Amanda worked 18-hour days, creating a massive ledger that tracked every discrepancy, every forged signature, every impossible timeline. Lucas proved invaluable, his quick mind grasping connections that even Amanda missed. Look here, he said one afternoon, pointing to a survey map. This claims the river changed course in 1871, making the land on the east bank open for claiming. But old Sam says that river hasn't moved since his grandfather's time. Environmental fraud, Amanda breathed. They're falsifying natural features to void treaty protections. She added another entry to her growing list of criminal activities. Sarah entered with a pot of coffee and news. My cousin sent word. The federal investigator is Samuel Brennan. He'll be in Prescott next month. Brennan, Daniel mused. I've heard that name. Supposed to be incorruptible. Everyone has a price, Thomas said darkly. Not everyone, Amanda countered, thinking of the people around her who'd chosen integrity over comfort. We just need to make sure he sees the truth before anyone can cloud his vision. That night, Amanda couldn't sleep. She walked out to the porch, finding Daniel already there, rifle across his knees. Expecting trouble? She asked. Always expecting, rarely surprised. He glanced at her. You should know. There's been talk in town. Questions about the new woman at Whispering Winds. Descriptions being passed around. Hartwell's doing? Most likely, the Pinkertons are thorough. Amanda wrapped her shawl tighter. I won't let my presence endanger anyone here. If I need to leave. You tried that speech already, Daniel interrupted. Answer's still the same. You're one of us now. We protect our own. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why take such risks for someone you barely know? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. You know what Mary used to say? She'd say the desert doesn't care about your past, only your present. Are you helping or harming? Building or destroying? That's all that matters. I spent 3 years destroying, and now you're building. That's the choice that counts. He shifted the rifle. Besides, Lucas would never forgive me if I let his favorite teacher disappear into the night. Despite everything, Amanda smiled. He's a remarkable boy. He is. And he's learning things from you I could never teach him. Not just letters and numbers, but how to fight injustice with intelligence instead of violence. That's worth any risk. A coyote howled in the distance, and Daniel tensed, then relaxed. Just the regular night hunter, he said. You should get some sleep. Tomorrow Sarah wants to show you something. What Sarah wanted to show her turned out to be a hidden canyon 5 miles from the trading post. They rode out at dawn, just the 2 women, leaving the men to mind the store. This place is sacred to my mother's people, Sarah explained as they dismounted near a spring. Ancient petroglyphs covered the rock walls, telling stories Amanda couldn't read but felt in her bones. "Why bring me here?" Sarah settled on a flat rock, gesturing for Amanda to join her. "Because you need to understand what we're really fighting for. It's not just land or water or mineral rights. It's this." She gestured at the petroglyphs. "Memory, history, the right to exist as we are, not as others would make us." Amanda studied the ancient markings. "I never thought of it that way in Boston. Land was just property, something to be bought and sold. That's the difference between your people and mine. You see ownership, we see relationship." Sarah pulled out a leather pouch, revealing dried sage. "May I?" Amanda nodded, not entirely understanding but trusting. Sarah lit the sage, letting the smoke drift between them. "In our way, when someone does wrong, they must make amends not just to the people they've harmed, but to the land itself. You carry guilt for what you did in Boston, but guilt without action is just another form of selfishness." The words stung because they were true. How do I make amends to people I've never met, land I've never seen? By protecting what remains, by using your knowledge to prevent future harm, by teaching children like Lucas that there's another way. Sarah's eyes were kind but serious. The woman who came to us from the desert was running from her past. But the woman sitting here now, she's running toward her future. They sat in companionable silence as the sun climbed higher. Amanda felt something shift inside her, a letting go of the Elizabeth Brooks who'd worn Boston society like armor. That woman had died in the desert, just as Hartwell claimed. But something new had been born at Whispering Winds. When they returned to the trading post, they found organized chaos. 3 more families had arrived with documents, and Lucas was trying to manage them all while Daniel dealt with customers. "Miss Amanda," Lucas called. "The Begay family brought their original land grant from the Mexican government. It's in Spanish, but it's stamped and everything." Amanda dove into the work with renewed purpose. Each document, each story, each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall they were building against the railroad's ambitions. By evening, she'd added 20 pages to her report. Thomas Red Crow returned from town with supplies and news. "Pinkertons are asking about a woman matching your description, offering good money for information." "How much?" Amanda asked, trying for lightness. $50, Thomas grinned. "I was tempted to turn you in myself, but Sarah makes better coffee than I'd get in any Flagstaff hotel." Despite the joke, the noose was tightening. Amanda could feel it in the way Daniel checked the windows more frequently, in how Sarah kept the shotgun within easy reach. That night, as she prepared for bed, Amanda made a decision. She lit a candle and began to write. To Mr. Samuel Brennan, federal investigator. "Sir, I write to you as someone with intimate knowledge of systematic land fraud being perpetrated across the territories. I am prepared to provide documented evidence and sworn testimony regarding these crimes, which reach to the highest levels of business and government. I am currently residing at Whispering Winds Trading Post, where I have compiled extensive documentation. I urge you to come here directly upon your arrival in the territory, as interested parties are actively working to suppress this information. Time is of the essence. Lives and livelihoods hang in the balance. Respectfully, a concerned citizen." She'd sign her real name when the time came. For now, anonymity was armor. As she sealed the letter, Lucas appeared in her doorway. "Miss Amanda, are you scared?" She considered lying, then decided he deserved truth. "Yes, very scared. But you're staying anyway." "Yes." He nodded, satisfied. "Papa says courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right despite the fear. Your papa is a wise man. So are you. He paused. When this is over, will you stay? Not just until the danger passes, but really stay. Make this your home? Amanda looked at this boy who'd found her dying in the desert, who'd offered water and hope and a new life. Where else would I go? My family is here now. Lucas smiled, bright and sudden as that first day, and disappeared back to his room. Amanda blew out the candle and lay in the darkness, listening to the night sounds of the desert. Somewhere out there, Pinkertons were hunting for her. In Boston, Hartwell was confident his secrets were safe. In Washington, men in power made decisions that affected thousands of lives they'd never bother to know. But here at Whispering Winds, people were fighting back with the tools at hand: knowledge, courage, and an unshakable belief that justice, though delayed, would eventually prevail. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, Amanda Brooks, teacher, bookkeeper, an unlikely warrior for justice, slept peacefully in the heart of the desert that had claimed her and remade her into something stronger than she'd ever imagined possible. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning, carried by a nervous rider who didn't even dismount. Daniel read it, his face grave, then passed it to Amanda. E. Brennan arriving Thursday. Hartwell en route with federal marshals. Destroy everything. A friend. Amanda's hands trembled. Federal marshals? How did he? He's claiming you stole documents when you left, Daniel said quietly. Banking on his word against yours. Sarah emerged from the back room where she'd been teaching the children. Then we need to move. Now. They had 2 days. 2 days to preserve months of work, to protect the evidence that could save hundreds of families from losing their lands. Amanda's mind raced through possibilities. We can't destroy it, she said firmly. This evidence is all we have. And if the marshals find it here, they'll confiscate everything and you'll be in chains. Thomas Red Crow pointed out. He'd arrived that morning with supplies and had stayed to help organize documents. Lucas looked up from where he'd been copying maps. What about the canyon? The one Aunt Sarah showed Miss Amanda. Sarah shook her head. Too sacred. We can't bring this trouble there. Then where? Daniel paced the room, thinking. It needs to be somewhere secure but accessible. Somewhere the marshals won't think to look even if they turn this place inside out. Amanda stared at the stacks of evidence they'd compiled. Ledgers, contracts, testimonies, maps, the fruit of weeks of dangerous work. Then inspiration struck. We don't hide it, she said slowly. We file it. Everyone looked at her in confusion. I spent 3 years learning how bureaucracy works. The best place to hide something is often in plain sight, properly filed and stamped. She turned to Thomas. You said Judge Morrison requested the original treaty. What if we filed everything with the court as supporting documentation for the treaty verification? Daniel's eyes lit up. Brilliant. Once it's filed with the court, it becomes part of the official record. The marshals can't touch it without a specific warrant. And Hartwell won't know to request one because he doesn't know exactly what we have. Sarah added, They worked through the night, creating multiple copies of everything. Amanda drafted a cover letter that would accompany the filing, carefully worded to seem routine while ensuring the documents would be properly cataloged and preserved. Lucas, I need you to ride to the Yazzie Ranch, Daniel instructed, and tell them we need their fastest rider to take these to Prescott immediately. I can go myself, Lucas protested. I know the way. No. Amanda's voice was sharper than intended. You're too young for this danger. Lucas's face set in stubborn lines that reminded her painfully of his father. I'm old enough to know what's at stake. Old enough to help. You are helping, Sarah said gently. By staying here and keeping up appearances. If the marshals arrive and find only adults, they'll be suspicious. We need everything to seem normal. By dawn Wednesday, the documents were gone, racing toward Prescott in the saddlebags of Miguel Yazi, the fastest rider in the territory. The trading post looked normal, perhaps a bit too clean, but nothing that would raise immediate suspicion. Amanda tried to maintain routine, teaching the children their morning lessons while her stomach churned with anxiety. Every approaching rider made her heart race, but Wednesday passed without incident. Thursday morning brought a dust cloud from the east. Multiple riders, moving with purpose. Positions, Daniel said quietly. He'd been a soldier once, Amanda realized. It showed in how he organized their defense, not with weapons but with careful staging. Sarah at her usual place with mending, Thomas checking inventory, Lucas helping customers. Amanda bent over the legitimate account books. The riders swept into the yard in a cloud of authority. Amanda recognized Hartwell immediately. Sitting his horse awkwardly, he'd never been comfortable outside his Boston office. With him were 3 federal marshals and 2 men who could only be Pinkertons. Mr. Silversmith, the lead marshal called. I'm Marshal Garrett. We're looking for a woman. Goes by Amanda Brooks, though she may be using another name. Daniel emerged onto the porch, wiping his hands on his apron. Can't say I know that name. Marshal? We get lots of folks through here. Hartwell dismounted, his pale eyes scanning the buildings. She's here. I know she's here. Sir, I'll need you to let us handle this, Marshal Garrett said, though his tone suggested he wasn't pleased to be playing errand boy for a Boston lawyer. Of course, Hartwell's smile was thin. I'll just have a look around your establishment. Mr. Silversmith, I trust you have no objection? Actually, I do, Daniel said mildly. This is private property. You want to search. You need a warrant. One of the Pinkertons stepped forward. The marshals have a warrant for Amanda Brooks' arrest. That gives us the right to arrest Amanda Brooks if you can find her, Sarah interrupted, emerging from the doorway. Not to ransack a lawful business. Marshal Garrett looked uncomfortable. He was a lawman, not a corporate enforcer, and the distinction clearly mattered to him. Ma'am's got a point, Mr. Hartwell. Warrants for a person, not a premises. Hartwell's face flushed. Marshal, this woman is a fugitive who stole valuable documents from my firm. Documents that could be hidden here. Then get a warrant for the documents, Daniel suggested. Judge Morrison's in Prescott, 2 days' ride there and back. Amanda forced herself to keep working on the accounts, her handwriting steady despite her racing heart. Through the window, she could see the confrontation escalating. I know you're in there, Miss Brooks, Hartwell called suddenly. Did you really think you could hide forever? Did you think your death would go unquestioned when you started meddling in affairs beyond your understanding? Lucas appeared at Amanda's elbow. Don't go out there, he whispered. Papa has a plan. Your silence won't protect you, Hartwell continued. Or these people who've harbored a criminal. That did it. Amanda stood, but Sarah's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Wait, Sarah murmured. Listen. New hoofbeats. A single rider approaching fast from the west. As the rider came into view, Amanda saw it was a young Apache man she didn't recognize. Mr. Silversmith, the rider called. Emergency at Widow Carson's place. She needs the healer right away. Sarah grabbed her medicine bag. A prop, Amanda realized, but a convincing one. I have to go, she announced to the marshals. Unless you intend to let an old woman suffer? Marshal Garrett tipped his hat. Of course not, ma'am. I'll need assistance, Sarah continued. Someone who can read my medicine labels. They're in Latin. She looked directly at Amanda. You there? You've got educated handwriting. Come with me. It was flimsy, but it might work. Amanda stood, keeping her face down, and moved toward the door. Stop! Hartwell surged forward. That's her, that's Amanda Brooks! But Amanda had learned things in her weeks at Whispering Winds. How to mount a horse quickly, how to ride astride, how to trust in the loyalty of people who'd taken her in. She was on the horse behind the Apache rider before anyone could react, and they were galloping away with Sarah on her own mount beside them. After them, Hartwell shouted, but Marshal Garrett held up a hand. Mr. Hartwell, I'm not leading my men on a chase through Apache territory for a woman who may or may not be your missing clerk. We'll wait here. They have to come back eventually. The ride was hard and fast, taking trails Amanda hadn't known existed. After an hour, they stopped at a small camp where several Apache families waited. Friends of the trading post, Sarah explained. They'll keep you safe while we sort this out. I can't keep running, Amanda said. It's time to face this. Yes, Sarah agreed, but on our terms, not his. They spent the night in the camp, where Amanda learned that Widow Carson was quite well and had never needed a healer. The Apache families shared their food and asked no questions, though Amanda caught them studying her with curious eyes. Friday morning brought another rider, Thomas Red Crow, grinning broadly. Judge Morrison sent word, he announced. Samuel Brennan arrived yesterday. He's very interested in the documents filed with the court. Very interested indeed. And Hartwell? Amanda asked. Still at the trading post, getting more frustrated by the hour. Daniel's been the perfect host, feeding them, offering shelter, and absolutely no information whatsoever. Thomas's grin widened. Also, Miguel made it back. The filing was completed. Every document properly stamped and recorded. Relief flooded through Amanda. Whatever happened to her now, the evidence was safe. There's more, Thomas continued. Brennan wants to meet with whoever compiled those documents. Says it's the most comprehensive case of land fraud he's ever seen. He's offering federal protection to anyone willing to testify. Amanda closed her eyes. Federal protection meant admitting her real identity, facing Hartwell's accusations, risking everything. But it also meant a chance to finally stop him. When? She asked. Tomorrow. Brennan's set up at the Prescott Federal Building. He's asked that you come directly there, not to the trading post. It could be a trap, Sarah warned. Everything could be a trap, Amanda replied. But hiding isn't living. Daniel told me once that the desert doesn't care about your past, only your present. Well, my present is standing up to the man who taught me how to steal legally. That night, around the Apache campfire, Amanda made her preparations. She wrote letters to Lucas, to Daniel, to Sarah. If things went badly, she wanted them to know what they'd meant to her. An old Apache woman approached her as she wrote. Through Thomas, who translated, the woman said, "You have the look of someone going to war." "I suppose I am," Amanda replied. The woman nodded approvingly and pressed something into Amanda's hand. A small turquoise stone, worn smooth by generations of handling. "A for protection," Thomas translated, "and for truth. She says the stone will help others see your true heart." Saturday morning came too soon. Amanda dressed in her best remaining dress, simple but clean, and pinned her hair severely back. She looked like what she was, a woman ready to face judgment. The ride to Prescott took most of the day. Sarah and Thomas accompanied her, while runners had gone ahead to alert Brennan of their coming. As they approached the federal building, Amanda saw a crowd gathered outside. Word had spread, and there, on the steps, stood Hartwell with his marshals. "There," Hartwell pointed, "arrest that woman." But another voice cut through the commotion. "Stand down, Marshal Garrett." A man emerged from the building, tall, austere, with the kind of presence that commanded immediate attention. Samuel Brennan looked exactly like what he was, incorruptible. "Mr. Hartwell," Brennan said coolly, "I've been reviewing some fascinating documents. Documents that suggest you have quite a bit to answer for yourself." "That woman is a thief and a liar," Hartwell sputtered. "That woman," Brennan replied, "is a federal witness under my protection, and you, sir, are under investigation for conspiracy to defraud the United States government." The color drained from Hartwell's face. "You can't. She's nobody, a clerk, a fallen woman traveling alone." Amanda stepped forward, finding her voice at last. "I was your clerk, Mr. Hartwell. I prepared every document, filed every claim, notarized every fraudulent deed. I know where every body is buried in your empire of paper." She met his eyes steadily. "And I'm prepared to testify to all of it." You signed those documents too," Hartwell snarled, abandoning pretense. "You're as guilty as I am." "Yes," Amanda said simply. "I was, but I'm trying to make amends. Can you say the same?" Brennan stepped between them. "Miss Brooks, if you'll come with me, we have a great deal to discuss." He glanced at Hartwell. "You might want to contact your attorneys. Mr. Hartwell, you're going to need them." As Amanda climbed the steps to the federal building, she heard a familiar voice call out. Turning, she saw Lucas pushing through the crowd, Daniel behind him. "Miss Amanda," Lucas reached her, breathing hard. "We came as soon as we heard. Papa says to tell you we're all here, the whole community, everyone whose land you helped save." Looking back, Amanda saw them, the Yazzie brothers, Old Sam, the Apache families, Mexican ranchers, small farmers, all the people whose lives would have been destroyed by Hartwell's schemes. "We stand with you," Daniel said quietly, meeting her eyes. "Whatever comes." Amanda felt the turquoise stone warm in her pocket. The desert had given her more than refuge. It had given her purpose, family, and the courage to face her past in order to build a better future. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "All of you, for showing me that there's more than one way to read the law. That justice isn't just about documents and contracts. It's about people and community and doing what's right even when it costs everything." She turned and walked into the federal building, ready to tell her truth at last. Behind her, Hartwell's blustering grew fainter, drowned out by the voices of the people, Native, Mexican, American, who'd come to witness justice being done. The desert had taken in a broken woman running from her past. Now it had sent forth a warrior armed with truth, ready to fight for its future. And Amanda Brooks, teacher, bookkeeper, unlikely champion of the dispossessed, was finally ready to be exactly who she'd become. The testimony took 3 days. Amanda sat in the federal building's austere chamber, methodically laying out the intricate web of fraud that Hartwell and his associates had woven across the territories. Samuel Brennan proved to be a meticulous investigator, drawing out details she hadn't even realized were significant. "This ledger entry from March 1873, Brennan pointed to a document. "Can you explain the notation?" Amanda studied her own handwriting from 2 years ago. "That's a payment to surveyors for boundary adjustments. In reality, they were paid to falsify water sources on maps, making treaty-protected lands appear worthless while adjacent parcels suddenly showed springs and streams." The court stenographer's pen scratched steadily. Every word was being preserved, building a case that would reshape territorial law. On the second day, Hartwell's attorneys arrived from San Francisco. 3 men in expensive suits who objected to everything and demanded proof that Amanda was who she claimed to be. "My client insists this woman is an imposter," the lead attorney declared. "Elizabeth Amanda Brooks died in a tragic accident months ago. We have a death certificate." Brennan produced a telegram. Interesting, because I have here correspondence from Mrs. Margaret Brooks of Boston, confirming her daughter is very much alive and prepared to testify against those who led her into sin and crime. Amanda's breath caught. Her mother knew, and apparently, her mother had chosen justice over reputation. Furthermore, Brennan continued, Miss Brooks' identity has been verified by multiple witnesses, including several prominent Boston citizens who've provided sworn affidavits. The attorneys retreated, whispering furiously with Hartwell, who sat pale and diminished in the corner. By the third day, word had spread throughout Prescott. The courtroom was packed with journalists, territorial officials, and citizens whose lives hung in the balance. Daniel, Sarah, and Lucas sat in the front row, their presence a steady anchor. Miss Brooks, Brennan said, you've provided extensive documentation of land fraud. But I understand there's more. A specific incident that prompted your flight from Boston? Amanda took a breath. This was the moment she dreaded. Yes, in January. I discovered documents in Mr. Hartwell's private safe. They detailed a plan to poison water sources on native lands, making the inhabitants sick enough to abandon their territories voluntarily. Gasps rippled through the room. That's a lie, Hartwell burst out. A vicious fabrication. I have the documents, Amanda said quietly. I took them when I fled. They're in your handwriting, Mr. Hartwell, outlining how small amounts of mercury introduced to wells would cause symptoms mimicking natural illness. She produced the papers from her satchel, the ones she'd carried across half a continent, the ones that had nearly cost her life in the desert. Brennan examined them, his face growing stonier with each page. Attempted murder, he said flatly. Mass poisoning. This goes far beyond land fraud. The rest of the day blurred together. More testimony, more documents, more revelations. By evening, when Brennan finally dismissed her, Amanda felt hollowed out but strangely light. The truth was no longer hers to carry alone. Outside the federal building, the community from Whispering Winds waited. Old Sam stepped forward, speaking in Navajo with Thomas translating. He says you spoke well, that your words carried the power of truth and the weight of justice. He says you've earned your place among the people. Amanda felt tears threaten. Tell him I'm honored beyond words. Lucas tugged at her sleeve. Does this mean it's over? Can you come home now? Home. The word settled in her chest like a warm stone. Not quite yet, Brennan said, joining them. Miss Brooks, your testimony has been invaluable, but I need to ask, would you be willing to help us further? Your understanding of these schemes is unparalleled. The federal government needs someone who can help untangle what's been done and prevent it from happening again. Amanda looked at the faces around her, her new family, her community. What exactly are you asking? A position with the Bureau of Land Management, special investigator focusing on fraud prevention. You'd be based here in the territory, able to continue your work at Whispering Winds while helping us clean up this mess. The first woman investigator? Sarah asked shrewdly. Brennan smiled slightly. Times are changing, slowly, but changing. What do you say, Miss Brooks? Before Amanda could answer. Commotion erupted near the courthouse. Hartwell was being led out in shackles, marshals on either side. He caught sight of Amanda and lunged forward, held back by his guards. You've destroyed everything, he screamed. You were nothing. I made you. I taught you everything. Amanda stepped forward, meeting his wild eyes with calm certainty. Yes, you taught me. You taught me how law could be twisted to serve greed, how paper could steal what guns couldn't, how civilization could be used as a weapon against those deemed uncivilized. She paused. But others taught me better lessons. They taught me that law could protect as well as plunder. That strength comes from community, not conquest. That true civilization means living in harmony with the land and each other. Hartwell sagged between the marshals, suddenly looking far older than his years. As they led him away, Amanda heard him muttering about betrayal and ingratitude. "Will he hang?" Lucas asked quietly. "No," Brennan answered. "But he'll spend many years in federal prison. His associates, too. Once we round them all up, the schemes Miss Brooks exposed involved dozens of conspirators across multiple states. That evening, they gathered at the hotel Brennan had arranged. Over dinner, plans began to form. Amanda would accept the federal position, splitting her time between investigation work and teaching at Whispering Winds. The trading post would become an unofficial outpost for land rights protection, a place where people could bring concerns and get help navigating the legal system. "We'll need to expand the school," Sarah said. "If Amanda's going to be traveling for investigations, we'll need another teacher." "I know someone," Thomas offered. "My cousin finished her education at Carlisle. She wants to teach, but not in a government school where she'd have to forbid children their own language." "Oh, perfect," Daniel said. "We'll build another room onto the main building." Amanda watched them plan, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the desert heat. These people had taken her in when she was nothing but a desperate stranger. Now they were restructuring their lives to accommodate her new role, never questioning whether she'd return to them. "I need to go to Boston," she said suddenly. "To testify in the trials there, to see my mother, to—" She paused. "To officially bury Elizabeth Amanda Brooks, the Boston society girl who did what she was told without questioning." "And then?" Daniel asked, though his eyes said he already knew the answer. "And then I come home, to stay." Lucas whooped, earning a gentle cuff from Sarah, but everyone was smiling, even stoic old Sam. Over the following weeks, the investigation expanded rapidly. Amanda's documentation proved to be the key that unlocked dozens of other cases. Land that had been stolen was returned. Families who'd been driven out came back. The railroad's expansion plans ground to a halt as their shell companies were exposed and dismantled. Amanda traveled between Prescott and Whispering Winds, always returning to the trading post with relief. The children's lessons continued, now expanded to include basic legal rights and land law. "If they're going to fight for their lands," Amanda explained to a visiting territorial official, "they need to understand the weapons being used against them." The official, who'd come expecting to find irregularities, left impressed by the small school where Apache, Navajo, Mexican, and Anglo children learned side by side, where lessons were taught in multiple languages, where understanding different ways of seeing the world was considered essential education. One evening, as Amanda worked on investigation reports by lamplight, Daniel knocked on her doorframe. "Busy?" "Always, but come in." He settled into the chair across from her desk, the same desk where she'd first untangled his ledgers months ago. "I've been thinking about what you said to Hartwell, about the lessons you've learned here. All true, I know, but I wonder if you realize what you've taught us in return." Amanda set down her pen. "I've taught children their letters and numbers. Hardly revolutionary. You've taught us that the enemy's weapons can be turned against them. That paper and law and bureaucracy aren't inherently evil. They're tools that can build or destroy depending on who wields them." He leaned forward. "You've taught Lucas that fighting doesn't always mean violence. You've taught Sarah that her dream of educated Native children who still know their own culture is possible. You've taught me." He paused, and Amanda found herself holding her breath. "You've taught me that second chances are real, that people can choose to become better than their worst mistakes." The lamp flickered between them, casting dancing shadows on the adobe walls. Outside, a nighthawk called, and the desert wind whispered secrets to the stars. We've taught each other, Amanda said softly. That's what family does. Daniel smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed his weathered face. Yes, that's what family does. A month later, Amanda stood in a Boston courtroom, facing the men who'd been Hartwell's partners. Her mother sat in the gallery, dressed in mourning black but with steel in her spine. They'd had their reunion, tears and recriminations giving way to understanding and a fierce pride in what Amanda had become. They say you've gone native, her mother had said. Living in the wilderness, teaching Indian children, working like a common laborer. Yes, Amanda had replied simply. I have. Her mother had studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good. You look happier than I've ever seen you. Stronger, too. Now, facing the Boston jury. Amanda told her story again. But this time, she wasn't just exposing crimes, she was representing everyone at Whispering Winds, everyone whose land and life had been threatened by men who saw the frontier as nothing but opportunity for profit. The territories aren't empty wilderness waiting to be civilized, she said in her closing statement. They're home to thousands of people, native tribes with ancient claims, Mexican families with deep roots, American settlers trying to build something new. What men like Hartwell tried to do wasn't development, it was theft, pure and simple, and it was wrong. The convictions came swiftly. As Amanda left the courthouse for the last time, she felt the final chains of her old life fall away. Elizabeth Amanda Brooks of Boston was truly dead. In her place stood Amanda Brooks of Whispering Winds, teacher, investigator, defender of justice. The journey back to Arizona took 2 weeks. As the train carried her west, the landscape gradually shifted from manicured civilization to raw beauty. With each mile, Amanda felt herself relaxing, breathing easier, coming home. When the stagecoach finally crested the rise above Whispering Winds, Amanda saw them waiting, her whole community arrayed in front of the trading post. Lucas stood with a handmade banner. Welcome home, Miss Amanda. She was off the coach before it fully stopped, Lucas crashing into her arms. You're back? Did they convict them? Did you see your ma? Are you staying now? Yes, yes, and yes, Amanda laughed, hugging him tight. Sarah approached with her quiet smile. The school's been waiting for you, and Thomas's cousin is wonderful, but the children miss their Miss Amanda. The books are a mess again, too, Daniel added, though his eyes were warm. Seems I can't keep them straight without you. Then it's good I'm home to stay, Amanda said. That night, they held a celebration. The trading post filled with neighbors and friends, sharing food and stories and music. Amanda found herself pulled into a circle dance, stumbling through the steps while Lucas laughed and tried to teach her. Later, as the party wound down, she stood on the porch where this had all begun. The desert stretched out beneath the stars, vast and timeless and beautiful. But it no longer seemed empty or hostile. It was simply home. No regrets? Sarah asked, joining her. Amanda thought of her comfortable life in Boston, of the career she might have had, the marriage she'd been expected to make, the woman she'd been supposed to become. None, she said firmly. I was traveling through, running from my past. But a Navajo boy asked if I wanted to meet his papa, and turned me around, turned me into who I was meant to be. In the distance, coyotes sang their ancient songs. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and possibility. And Amanda Brooks, no longer lost, no longer running, stood surrounded by family she'd chosen and who'd chosen her, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. The transformation was complete. From Boston clerk complicit in theft to territorial investigator fighting for justice. From desperate refugee to beloved teacher. From stranger to family. The desert had worked its alchemy, turning lead into gold, fear into courage, isolation into community, and at the heart of it all was a simple truth. Sometimes getting lost is the only way to find where you truly belong. The moon was new, leaving the desert in perfect darkness. Amanda crouched behind a cluster of rocks, her heart hammering against her ribs. Beside her, Lucas breathed steadily, calm as his father despite his youth. On her other side, Robert Yazzie checked his camera equipment one final time. "You sure about this, Miss Amanda?" Thomas Red Crow whispered from behind them. "Once we go in, there's no turning back." Amanda thought of the report that had arrived last week. Wells on 3 reservations showing signs of mercury poisoning, just as the documents she'd stolen from Hartwell had predicted. The federal investigation had stopped the conspiracy's leaders. But the operation itself had continued, run by men whose names never appeared on any papers. "I'm sure," she said, "the courts need proof. Documents can be disputed, but photographs can't lie." Robert finished. He was young, barely 20, but his talent with the new portable cameras had already earned him recognition in Prescott. "I've got enough magnesium powder for maybe 12 flashes. We'll have to make each one count." The Silver Creek mining camp lay half a mile ahead, its buildings dark except for 2 lit windows in the main office. According to Sarah's network of informants, the camp was a front, minimal silver extraction covering an elaborate operation to contaminate water sources upstream from native settlements. "Remember the plan." Daniel's voice came through the darkness. He'd positioned himself with the horses, ready for their escape. "And document everything you can and out. No heroics." Amanda almost smiled. 6 months ago, she'd been terrified of riding in daylight. Now she was preparing to infiltrate a criminal operation in pitch darkness. The desert had indeed transformed her. They moved forward using skills Sarah and the Apache scouts had taught them. How to walk silently on gravel. How to use shadows. How to breathe so quietly even dogs wouldn't hear. The camp's perimeter was laughably unguarded. Why would they expect trouble? They were supposed to be protected by law, by paper, by the very systems Amanda had once helped corrupt. The first building was storage. Lucas picked the lock, a skill Amanda had decided not to ask about, and they slipped inside. By the light of a carefully shielded lantern, they found crates of chemicals, all mislabeled. "Salt," Robert read from one crate. "But smell that?" The acrid odor was unmistakable. Mercury compounds, enough to poison a dozen watersheds. "First photograph," Amanda directed. "Make sure the false labels are clear." The magnesium flash exploded in brilliant white light. For a moment, Amanda was blind, panic rising, but her vision cleared, and no alarm sounded. They moved systematically through the building, documenting everything. Shipping manifests with delivery dates corresponding to reported illnesses. Maps with water sources marked in red. A logbook tracking dispersal rates with clinical precision. "This is evil," Lucas whispered, his young face hard with anger. "Pure evil." "Yes," Amanda agreed, "which is why we're stopping it." The main office was their real target. Amanda had learned enough about criminal operations to know that someone always kept insurance. Documents that could protect them if their partners turned. Those documents would be their proof. The office door was locked more securely, but Robert produced a thin metal tool. "My uncle taught me. Sometimes you need to document things people don't want documented." Inside, the office looked legitimate. Mining claims on the walls, assay reports on the desk. But Amanda went straight to a painting of a desert sunset, feeling along its frame. There, a catch. The painting swung aside to reveal a safe. "Can you open it?" Thomas asked. Amanda smiled grimly. "Hartwell taught me many things. including his favorite safe combination, the date of his first major swindle. She spun the dial, praying criminal arrogance was universal. The safe clicked open. Inside were ledgers, contracts, and correspondence that made their previous findings look tame. Not just mercury poisoning, but plans to introduce disease to native communities, to burn crops and blame it on drought, to orchestrate conflicts between tribes to weaken resistance to land grabs. "Photograph everything," Amanda ordered, her voice tight with controlled fury. Robert worked quickly, the flashes coming one after another. Lucas and Thomas held documents flat, ensuring every word was captured. Amanda organized papers, making sure they had proof of the entire network, names, dates, amounts, methods. "That's 10 flashes," Robert warned. "2 left." A sound outside made them freeze. Footsteps on gravel, coming closer. Amanda gestured sharply. "Hide." They scattered, Amanda ducking behind the desk, Lucas vanishing into shadows with inherited skill. Robert and Thomas flattening themselves against the wall. The door opened. A man entered, lamp in hand, clearly checking on something. He went straight to the safe, then stopped. It was open. "What in the—" Lucas moved. Amanda hadn't even seen him approach. But suddenly the man was slumping, unconscious, the boy catching the lamp before it could fall and shatter. "Just a sleeper hold," Lucas said at Amanda's shocked look. "Papa taught me. He'll wake up with a headache." They had minutes now, maybe less. Amanda grabbed the most damning documents, orders signed by territorial officials, bank records showing bribes, correspondence with Washington politicians. No time for more photographs. They'd have to take the originals and hope it was enough. "Go," she hissed. They ran, abandoning stealth for speed. Behind them, shouts arose as the unconscious man was discovered. Lanterns flared to life across the camp. "Hey there! Someone spotted them! Stop, thieves!" A shot rang out, the bullet whining off rocks near Amanda's head. Terror and adrenaline flooded her system, but she kept running, clutching the documents. More shots, then answering fire from the ridge, Daniel and the Yazzie brothers providing cover as planned. The camp erupted in confusion, men shooting at shadows while Amanda and her team reached the horses. "Ride," Daniel commanded. They rode hard through the darkness, trusting their mounts and the desert knowledge that had become second nature. Behind them, pursuit foundered as horses stumbled on unfamiliar ground. But as they crested a rise, Amanda's heart sank. Lanterns ahead, they'd sent riders to cut them off. "This way," Lucas called, veering toward a narrow canyon. "Trust me!" They followed, plunging into darkness so complete Amanda couldn't see her horse's ears. The canyon walls pressed close, sometimes so narrow they had to ride single file. Behind them, shouts and curses as their pursuers balked at the passage. After what felt like hours but was probably minutes, they emerged onto a wide plateau. Sarah waited with fresh horses and Apache warriors who would ensure no one followed them further. "Everyone safe?" she asked tersely. "Safe and successful," Amanda gasped, patting the document pouch. "We have everything." The ride back to Whispering Winds took until dawn, as the sun painted the desert in shades of gold and pink. Amanda realized her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the magnitude of what they'd done. "You all right?" Daniel asked, riding beside her. "We just committed several federal crimes," Amanda said, "one breaking and entering, theft, assault." "We documented crimes against humanity," Daniel corrected. "There's a difference between law and justice. You taught me that." Back at the trading post, they developed Robert's photographs immediately, using his makeshift darkroom. As the images emerged from the chemical baths, even Sarah, who rarely showed emotion, gasped. "This is proof," she said. Undeniable proof, and no court could ignore this. But will they listen? Thomas asked. We obtained it illegally. Amanda was already writing, her pen flying across paper. They'll listen because we're going to make it impossible not to. These documents mention names, judges, territorial officials, even a senator. We send copies to newspapers in San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, New York. We make it public before they can bury it. That's dangerous, Daniel warned. These men have killed for less. Then we'd better work fast. They worked through the day, making copies, preparing packages. Lucas, exhausted, fell asleep at the table, his head on his arms. Amanda covered him with a blanket, her heart tight with love and fear for this brave boy who'd become like a son to her. By evening, 30 packages were ready for distribution. The Yazzie brothers would ride north, Thomas and his cousins east. Sarah's network would ensure copies reached Native leaders across the territories. And Amanda would personally deliver a set to Samuel Brennan. Once these are sent, there's no going back, Sarah said. They'll come for us. Let them come, old Sam said from the doorway. He'd arrived with more riders, word having spread through the Native community. We stand with you. All the people stand with you. Amanda looked around at the faces gathered in the trading post. Apache, Navajo, Mexican, Anglo, united not by blood but by purpose. This was what the poisoners and land thieves feared most. Not violence, but solidarity. Not warfare, but justice. That night, as riders dispersed across the territory carrying their explosive cargo, Amanda found herself on the porch with Daniel. Lucas slept inside, exhausted by their adventure. I've been thinking, Daniel said quietly, about fear and courage, about the choices we make. Amanda waited, knowing he'd continue when ready. When Mary died, I thought my life was over. Thought I'd just manage the trading post, raise Lucas, grow old in the desert, safe, predictable. He turned to her. Then you arrived, half dead and fully terrified, and everything changed. You brought danger to our door, yes. But you also brought purpose, hope, the belief that things could be better. Hey, Daniel, let me finish. What we did tonight, what you led us to do, that's the most important thing I've been part of since the war. Win or lose, we stood up. We said no. We fought back with truth instead of bullets. He paused. I'm proud to stand with you, Amanda Brooks. Proud to have you in our family. Tears blurred Amanda's vision. I never meant to involve Lucas in danger, if anything happens to him. Lucas chose his path just as you chose yours. We can't protect our children from the world's evil. We can only teach them to fight it. Daniel's hand found hers in the darkness. Besides, he's got 2 parents now to watch over him. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Amanda's heart raced, but before she could respond, hoofbeats announced a rider approaching fast. Robert Yazzie burst into view, his horse lathered with sweat. They're coming, federal marshals, maybe 20 men. They'll be here by dawn. Amanda stood, her moment with Daniel forgotten in the face of immediate danger. Then we prepare. Sarah, gather the women and children. Anyone who wants to leave. No one's leaving, Sarah interrupted. This is our stand too. As the night deepened, whispering winds transformed into a fortress of truth. Documents were hidden in places no search would find. The photographs were already gone, racing toward newspapers and federal offices. And the people, the beautiful, brave, stubborn people prepared to face whatever came with the dawn. Amanda looked at the stars, thinking of the woman she'd been when she first saw them from this porch. Frightened, alone, running from justice. Now she stood surrounded by family, fighting for justice, ready to face the consequences of doing right. "No matter what happens tomorrow," she said to the desert wind, "it was worth it. All of it." Inside, Lucas stirred in his sleep, murmuring something about heroes and home. Amanda smiled. Heroes were just ordinary people who chose to act when action was needed. And home. Home was where you stood your ground, where you fought for what mattered, where love made you brave enough to face any danger. The eastern sky began to lighten. Soon, very soon, their greatest test would arrive. But Amanda Brooks, teacher, investigator, unlikely warrior, was ready. They all were. Because sometimes, the most powerful weapon against injustice isn't a gun or a law or even a fortune. Sometimes it's simply people willing to stand together and say, "No more, not here, not to us, not to anyone." The desert waited with them, ancient and patient, ready to witness whatever the dawn would bring. Dawn broke over whispering winds with unusual brilliance, as if the desert itself wanted to illuminate what was to come. Amanda stood on the porch in her best dress, the same simple blue cotton she'd worn to face Brennan months ago. Around her, the community gathered, men and women, elders and children, all dressed in their finest clothes. This would be no skulking surrender. They would meet their fate with dignity. The dust cloud appeared on the eastern horizon just after sunrise. 20 riders, as Robert had warned, their brass buttons glinting in the early light. At their head rode Marshal Garrett, the same man who'd come with Hartwell. But this time, his expression held something different. Respect, perhaps, or resignation. Beside him rode a man Amanda didn't recognize. Tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone used to wielding authority. As they drew closer, she saw the federal judge's insignia on his coat. "A Judge Theodore Morrison," Daniel murmured. "From Prescott. He's the one who accepted our treaty filing." The riders pulled up in the yard, but didn't dismount immediately. Judge Morrison's eyes swept over the assembled crowd, easily 60 people now, with more arriving from outlying areas. "Miss Amanda Brooks," the judge called. Amanda stepped forward. "I am she. I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of breaking and entering, theft of private documents, and conspiracy to commit industrial sabotage." He paused. "I also have a telegram from Washington that arrived this morning. Would you like me to read it publicly or privately?" Amanda's chin lifted. "I have no secrets from these people. Read it publicly." Judge Morrison produced a yellow paper. "From the Office of the President of the United States. In light of evidence received regarding systematic poisoning of water sources on federal and treaty-protected lands, all operations of the Silver Creek Mining Company are hereby suspended pending full investigation. Any person providing testimony or evidence in this matter is granted federal protection and immunity from prosecution for activities undertaken to expose said crimes." A murmur ran through the crowd. Amanda felt her knees weaken but forced herself to remain standing. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "Miss Amanda Brooks is requested to appear before a special congressional committee investigating corruption in territorial land management. Her safety and that of her associates is guaranteed by the full authority of the federal government." Marshal Garrett shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "Judge, my orders were to arrest—" "Your orders have been superseded, Marshal." Morrison's voice was sharp. "Unless you'd like to explain to the President himself why you arrested a federal witness under his personal protection." The Marshal backed down, but one of his deputies, a younger man with cruel eyes, spoke up. "What about the assault? My cousin was working security at that camp. They attacked him." Lucas stepped forward before anyone could stop him. I put him to sleep when he discovered us. He was reaching for his gun. Would you rather I'd let him shoot my mother? The word hung in the air. Mother. Amanda's eyes flew to Lucas, who stood straight and defiant, daring anyone to contradict him. Judge Morrison's expression softened slightly. How old are you, son? 13, sir. And you participated in this expedition? I did, because men were poisoning our water, making children sick, killing elders. Lucas's voice grew stronger. Because sometimes the law protects criminals instead of people. Because someone had to do something. Lucas, Daniel warned quietly. But the judge held up a hand. No, let him speak. Go on, young man. Lucas looked at Amanda, drawing strength from her nod. Miss Amanda taught us that the law is supposed to protect everyone equal. But we saw different. We saw papers being more important than lives. So we decided to get our own papers. Proof nobody could deny. And this proof, where is it now? Gone, Amanda said simply. Sent to newspapers across the country, to federal offices in Washington, to anyone who might listen and act. The judge dismounted, his movement deliberate. Miss Brooks, do you have copies of these documents? I do. I'll need to see them. He looked around at the crowd. But perhaps we could conduct this review inside. The sun grows warm. It was an olive branch, a gesture of civilized discussion rather than arrest. Amanda accepted it. Of course. Sarah, could you prepare coffee? Daniel, perhaps you could see to the marshal's horses. The transformation from potential confrontation to hospitality happened smoothly, a testament to the community's discipline. As the officials dismounted, children were sent to bring water for horses. Women emerged with fresh bread and preserves, and men quietly ensured that weapons remained visible but not threatening. Inside the trading post, Amanda spread the documents across the table. Judge Morrison examined each one carefully, his expression growing graver. Marshal Garrett read over his shoulder, occasionally whistling low at particularly damning revelations. This is extensive, the judge finally said. Names I recognize, men I've dined with. He looked at Amanda sharply. You realize what you've done? The hornet's nest you've kicked? We revealed a conspiracy to commit murder through environmental poisoning. Amanda replied steadily. If that disturbs hornets, perhaps it's time their nest was destroyed. The methods, though, were the only ones available to us. Sarah entered with coffee, her presence adding weight to Amanda's words. We tried legal channels first, the petition, the injunction, all proper and lawful. But when we realized the poisoning had already begun, that people were dying while we waited for court dates. You took action, Morrison finished. Yes, I see. He accepted coffee from Sarah with a nod of thanks. Tell me, Miss Brooks, in Boston, when you worked for Hartwell, did you ever imagine you'd end up here, breaking into buildings in the dead of night? Amanda considered the question seriously. No. In Boston, I believed the law was sacred, inviolate, that if we just followed the rules, justice would prevail. She gestured around the room, at the native artwork on the walls, the mix of cultures represented by the people visible through the windows. Here, I learned that law without conscience is just organized theft, that justice sometimes requires irregular methods. A vigilante justice, some would say, a documentary evidence gathering. I would counter. Amanda pulled out Robert's photographs. These images show crimes in progress. Would you have preferred we let people continue to die while we petitioned courts that might be compromised? Morrison studied the photographs, his face paling at some images. Dear God, the scope of this, goes to the highest levels, Amanda confirmed. That senator mentioned in the letters? He's on the Committee for Indian Affairs, the judge who kept dismissing our petitions. His brother-in-law sits on the mining company's board. Marshal Garrett set down his coffee cup hard. Judge, if even half of this is true, it's all true, Morrison said quietly. God help us, it's all true. I've been willfully blind, hiding behind procedure while people suffered. He looked at Amanda with new respect. You have courage, Miss Brooks, more than judges and lawmen who should have acted long ago. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, Amanda saw more riders approaching, but these wore no uniforms. Instead, she recognized Samuel Brennan's austere figure, accompanied by what looked like journalists, their notebooks already out. Ah, Morrison said dryly. The press arrives. How convenient. We invited them, Amanda admitted, sunlight being the best disinfectant for corruption. Brennan entered without ceremony, his eyes taking in the scene. Judge Morrison, Marshall, Miss Brooks. He smiled slightly. I see the telegram reached you in time. You knew about this? Morrison asked. I suspected Miss Brooks wouldn't sit idle while people were being poisoned. When reports of a midnight raid reached me, along with packages of extremely disturbing evidence, I moved quickly to ensure her protection. Brennan turned to Amanda. The president was most impressed by your documentation. He asked me to convey his personal thanks. I don't want thanks, Amanda said. I want the poisoning stopped. Already done. Federal troops seized the Silver Creek camp this morning. Several men are in custody and they're talking, naming names, as they say. Brennan's smile was sharp. It seems when faced with charges of attempted mass murder, loyalty to employers evaporates quickly. The journalists had crowded in, scribbling notes. One raised his hand like a schoolboy. Miss Brooks, is it true you were declared legally dead in Boston? Amanda felt the weight of the moment. Her answer would be printed across the nation, her story becoming part of the public record. No more hiding. Yes, she said clearly. My former employer, Josiah Hartwell, had me declared dead when I fled with evidence of his crimes. He thought a dead woman couldn't testify. She smiled. He was wrong. And you've been living here, teaching Indian children? Lucas pushed through the crowd to stand beside her. She teaches all children, Apache, Navajo, Mexican, Anglo, anyone who wants to learn. The journalist focused on Lucas. And you are? Lucas Silversmith, her son. Daniel moved to Amanda's other side, his presence solid and reassuring. My son. Our son. The implications were clear. The journalist scribbled faster. Judge Morrison stood. Gentlemen of the press, while I appreciate your interest, we have legal matters to discuss. Perhaps you could interview the community outside. I'm sure they have much to tell about the poisoning's effects. As the journalists filed out, eager for more stories, Morrison turned back to Amanda. The congressional hearing. You'll need to go to Washington. I understand. It will be difficult. These men have resources, influence. They'll try to discredit you, paint you as a fallen woman, a hysteric, a liar. They can try. Amanda's voice was steel. But I have truth on my side, and I have these people, their stories, their suffering, their courage. I won't go to Washington alone. No, Sarah said quietly, you won't. Over the following hours, plans took shape. A delegation would accompany Amanda to Washington. Sarah, old Sam, the Yazzie brothers, Robert with his photographs. They would bring the truth of the territories to the marble halls of power. It will need funds, Daniel said practically, travel, lodging, proper clothes for the hearing. Already arranged, Brennan announced. There's a defense fund established by several reform-minded congressmen. They're very interested in your evidence, Miss Brooks. As afternoon faded to evening, the marshals prepared to leave. Marshal Garrett approached Amanda privately. I owe you an apology, he said gruffly. When I came here with Hartwell, I thought you were just another criminal. I didn't look deeper, didn't ask why a Boston lady would run to the desert. He offered his hand. You've shown more courage than most lawmen I know. Amanda shook his hand. We all do what we think is right at the time. The important thing is being willing to change when we learn better. That night, Whispering Winds celebrated, not with wild abandon, but with the quiet joy of people who'd faced down power and survived. The children performed a play Lucas had written about brave truth-tellers defeating lying giants. The women cooked feast dishes from 3 cultures. The men sang songs of justice and homecoming. Amanda found herself on the porch again, but this time she wasn't alone. Daniel stood beside her, Lucas leaning against the railing, Sarah sitting in her usual chair with her mending that never seemed to get done during celebrations. Are you ready for this? Daniel asked. Washington will be nothing like here. Politics and manipulation and people who smile while planning your destruction. I survived Boston society, Amanda said wryly. How much worse can Washington be? You'll shine them with truth, Lucas said confidently. Just like you taught us, facts clearly presented, evidence properly documented, and no backing down when you're right. Sarah looked up from her mending. You've given us weapons to fight with, Amanda. Now it's time to use them where they'll do the most good. A shooting star streaked across the desert sky. Lucas pointed excitedly. Make a wish! Amanda closed her eyes, but she didn't wish. Instead, she gave thanks. For the boy who'd found her dying in the desert. For the man who'd given her shelter and purpose and love. For the woman who'd shown her that strength came in many forms. For the community that had transformed her from refugee to warrior. When she opened her eyes, her family was watching her with expressions of such faith and love that her breath caught. I won't let you down, she promised. You couldn't, Daniel said simply. Not the woman who rode through darkness to steal truth from liars. Not the teacher who shows children they can change the world with words and courage. Not the mother who... He stopped, color rising in his weathered cheeks. But Amanda understood. Mother, partner, warrior, teacher. She was all of these now. Forged in desert fire and tempered by community love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The train to Washington, the congressional hearing, the fight to make powerful men acknowledge their crimes. But tonight, surrounded by her chosen family, Amanda Brooks felt ready for anything. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and possibility, just as it had that first night. But now Amanda wasn't running from anything. She was running toward justice, toward truth, toward a future where children of all colors could drink clean water and learn in peace, and she wouldn't be running alone. 5 years had passed since Amanda Brooks testified before Congress. 5 years since her words and evidence had helped reshape federal policy on territorial land management. The desert sun that had once nearly killed her now warmed her face as she stood before the newest building at Whispering Winds. A proper schoolhouse, built with funds from the settlement against the mining companies. Mama Amanda, are you ready? Lucas called from the doorway. At 18, he'd grown tall and broad-shouldered like his father, but his quick mind and gentle heart remained unchanged. In 2 weeks, he would leave for Harvard, the first from their community to attend university. His education funded by a scholarship established for victims of the poisoning conspiracy. Just a moment, Amanda replied, adjusting the simple silver pin at her throat, Daniel's wedding gift, crafted with his own hands 3 years ago when they'd finally made official what the community had long recognized. The schoolhouse was already filling with people. What had begun as lessons for a handful of local children had grown into the Whispering Winds Educational Center, serving over 50 students from across the territory. They came to learn not just reading and arithmetic, but law, land rights, and the history of all peoples who called the desert home. Sarah Crow Feather emerged from the building, her hair now more silver than black, but her bearing still proud. As co-director of the school, she ensured that traditional knowledge was taught alongside Western education. "The journalists are here," she said. "From Harper's Weekly. They want to interview the woman who killed Hartwell's empire." Amanda smiled wryly at the dramatic title. She hadn't killed anything. She'd simply revealed the truth. The killing had been done by justice itself, swift and thorough once exposed to sunlight. Hartwell had died in prison 2 years ago. His fortune confiscated, his name become synonymous with corruption and greed. "Send them to the library after the ceremony," Amanda said. "Today is about the future, not the past." The ceremony was to dedicate the new wing of the school. Classrooms specifically designed for teaching environmental law and protection. The bitter irony wasn't lost on Amanda. The very poisoning that had threatened the community had led to its transformation into a center for education and legal advocacy. Daniel appeared at her side, slipping his hand into hers. "Ready?" "Always," she said, meaning it. The crowd that gathered was a testament to how far they'd all come. Federal judges sat beside Apache elders. Territorial officials who'd once dismissed Native concerns now listened respectfully to speakers from multiple tribes. Journalists from Eastern papers scribbled notes about the desert school that teaches justice. Old Sam, now in his 80s but still sharp-eyed, gave the opening blessing in Navajo. Thomas Red Crow, who'd become a successful photographer with his own studio in Prescott, documented everything. The Yazzie brothers, whose testimony had been crucial in the congressional hearings, sat in the front row with their families. But it was Robert Yazzie who drew Amanda's attention. Now 25, he'd returned from studying law in California to establish a practice specifically serving Native communities. He caught her eye and nodded, a student acknowledging his first teacher in the law. "Friends," Amanda began, standing before the assembled crowd. "5 years ago, I came to this place as a refugee, running from justice. I found instead a community that taught me the difference between law and righteousness, between legal and right." She looked out at the faces, brown and white, young and old, powerful and humble. "Today we dedicate not just a building but a promise that knowledge will be shared freely, that children of all backgrounds will learn to protect their lands and rights, that never again will ignorance be a weapon used against the vulnerable." The speeches continued, but Amanda's mind drifted to all that had changed. The congressional hearings had been grueling, weeks of testimony, accusations, and attempts to discredit her. But the evidence had been undeniable, the photographs impossible to dispute. The resulting legislation had established new protections for tribal lands and water sources, with enforcement mechanisms that actually worked. More importantly, it had inspired others. Across the territories, communities had begun documenting abuses, filing legal challenges, demanding their rights. The model developed at Whispering Winds, careful documentation, strategic legal action, and public exposure had spread like wildfire. "Mama?" Lucas touched her elbow. It was his turn to speak. Amanda watched with pride as her son, for he was truly her son in every way that mattered, addressed the crowd with confidence and eloquence. He spoke of his plans to study law, to return and serve his community, to continue the work begun here. My mother taught me that education is the most powerful weapon against injustice. Lucas said, "She showed me that one person with courage and knowledge can stand against an empire of lies. I go to Harvard not to leave my people, but to bring back tools to protect them better." After the ceremony, as people enjoyed Sarah's feast under the ramadas, the Harper's journalist approached Amanda. She was young, earnest, with ink-stained fingers and sharp eyes. "Mrs. Silversmith, your story has inspired thousands. But I'm curious, do you ever regret leaving your comfortable life in Boston?" Amanda looked around at her world, at Daniel, discussing new trading routes with a group of ranchers who'd once been suspicious of the Indian trader but now sought his advice. At Sarah, teaching a group of young women the properties of desert plants. At Lucas, surrounded by younger students who hero-worshipped him. "I didn't leave a comfortable life," Amanda said finally. "I fled a comfortable lie when what I found here, purpose, family, truth, that's worth more than all the comfort in the world. And the danger, the threats, even now, there are those who blame you for the economic disruption your revelations caused." Amanda's expression hardened slightly. "Let them blame. While they protected their profits, children were dying. While they filed their papers, families were being destroyed. I sleep well knowing I chose the right side." The journalist scribbled notes. "What's next for the Whispering Winds School?" "E-growth," Amanda said simply. "We've had inquiries from communities across the West. They want to establish similar schools, teaching practical law alongside traditional knowledge. Sarah and I are developing a curriculum that can be adapted to different regions and peoples. And personally, your son leaves for Harvard soon." Amanda smiled. "And 3 more children call me mother now, Maria and Joseph Redhawk, and little Anna Yazzie, all orphaned by the poisoning. Daniel and I have a full house and full hearts. When Lucas returns with his degree, he'll find the school ready for its next evolution." As afternoon faded to evening, Amanda found herself in the original classroom where she'd first taught Lucas his letters. The rough tables had been replaced with proper desks, the dirt floor with wooden boards. But the view from the window remained the same: red rocks and endless sky, the eternal desert that had remade her. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Anna Yazzie, just 7 years old, peered around the door. "Mama Amanda, will you tell us the story?" "Which story, little one?" "About the lady who got lost in the desert and found her home, please." Amanda sat in her old teaching chair as Anna climbed into her lap. Other children soon appeared, her adopted ones and others who'd stayed after the ceremony. Even Lucas joined them, sitting on the floor like he had as a boy. "Once upon a time," Amanda began, "a woman from a faraway city made terrible mistakes. She helped bad men steal from good people, though she didn't understand what she was doing. When she finally learned the truth, she was so ashamed that she ran away, far into the western desert. She told the story simply, honestly, not hiding her failures but emphasizing the power of redemption, the importance of choosing to do better." The children listened with rapt attention, even those who'd heard it many times before. "And then what happened?" Anna asked, though she knew the answer. "Then a brave boy found her and asked, 'Want to meet my papa?' And everything changed." Amanda hugged the little girl close. "She learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice. About people who see your worst mistakes and still believe in your best self." "Like us," Joseph said firmly. "We're family by choice." "Yes," Amanda agreed, "the very best kind." As the children dispersed for supper, Lucas lingered. "You know I'll come back, right? Harvard won't change me." "I know," Amanda said. "Well, you carry this place in your heart, just as I do. That's what makes us who we are, not where we're from, but where we choose to stand." That night, the trading post was quiet. Most visitors had returned home, leaving just the extended family. Amanda and Daniel sat on their porch, the same porch where she'd first glimpsed the possibility of a different life. "No regrets?" Daniel asked, echoing Sarah's question from years ago. "None," Amanda said firmly. "How could I regret the path that brought me to you? To all of this?" They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Inside, Sarah was helping the younger children with their nighttime routines. Lucas was in his room, packing for his journey east. Normal sounds of a life built on trust and love. A coyote called in the distance, that wild sound that had once terrified Amanda but now seemed like an old friend's greeting. The desert wind carried sage and memories, promises and possibilities. The journalist asked what's next. Amanda said, "I told her about the school's expansion, but truthfully, I think the biggest work is right here, raising these children to be strong and wise, teaching anyone who comes seeking knowledge, protecting this place and these people. Building the world we want to see, one student at a time," Daniel agreed. A shooting star crossed the sky. Lucas would say it was a good omen for his journey. Amanda didn't make a wish this time either. She had everything she needed: purpose, family, and the quiet satisfaction of work worth doing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Lucas would leave for Harvard, carrying their hopes and dreams. New students would arrive seeking knowledge. The fight for justice would continue, requiring vigilance and courage. But tonight, Amanda Silversmith, teacher, mother, advocate, and desert daughter by choice, sat with her husband on their porch, grateful for the winding path that had brought her home. She'd started as a woman traveling through, running from shame and fear. She'd become a woman who stood firm, who taught others to stand firm, who'd turned her greatest mistakes into her greatest purpose. The desert had tested her, broken her down, and rebuilt her stronger. The community had embraced her, challenged her, and shown her what family truly meant. And in teaching others to fight injustice with knowledge instead of violence, she'd found her own redemption. As the moon rose over whispering winds, casting silver light across the land, Amanda knew with bone-deep certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, not because she'd been born to it, but because she'd chosen it, fought for it, and earned it through courage, compassion, and the wild hope that justice delayed need not be justice denied. The woman who'd nearly died in the desert had been reborn as its fiercest protector, and the story was far from over.